Hello, everybody. Happy Friday, and welcome back to Productivity Mastery. Today, we're going to be talking about neurodiversity. We're going to talk about productivity, and I have brought you one of the best people to talk to you on this topic, Theo Smith, the author, the best-selling author of the book Neurodiversity at Work. There you go. Yes, thank you. Bring it on. He's a consultant, he's a speaker, he does a lot of cool things, and he'll talk about that as well. So I hope you guys are gonna have a great time. Theo, how are you today? How's jolly England?
Diane, I'm amazing. The sun is shining, beautiful day, feeling energized. I'm like at the top of my performance today, Stoyan. I'm up there.
I love it, man. I love it. Tell the audience about your relationship with neurodiversity until I'm sharing the link with everybody on LinkedIn.
Yeah, no problem at all. So, neurodiversity for me was like this hidden thing about myself that I didn't know, I didn't understand. So, neurodiversity is like biodiversity. We have natural variations in the way that we think, in the way that we feel, in the way that we see the world. And some of us have faced barriers, right? We faced neurological barriers, and we weren't aware of those barriers. We weren't aware of the kryptonite, right? The stuff that was harming us. And I've become aware of some of those things. And when you become aware of your strengths and your abilities, but also of some of those challenges and how they overlap, then you can do something about them. And so I now identify as ADHD and autistic, as does my child. But I was first diagnosed as dyslexic when I was 21 as a mature student in university. And I went in with no formal qualifications. I bombed out of school and college, but I managed to get in as a mature student. So yeah, that's the topic. It's important to me because it's transformative when you understand it better and when you can do something about it. And that's what we're going to talk about today, right?
Absolutely, man. It's been fascinating to understand. I think the first time I heard you speak, I don't remember what was the first time, but I remember that you mentioned that more than 20% of professionals have some sort of neurodiversity traits, and probably it's a lot more. Can you tell us more about the kind of the size, the scale of that phenomenon?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, there's lots of data, but the reality is the data is not properly validated because the data historically was validated by how many people had a diagnosis, right? So you'd say that maybe, 1 in 10 are dyslexic. You might say that, 2 in 10 are ADHD. But the problem is that was only based on those privileged enough in Western society, let's say, in the UK, for example, to have had a diagnosis. And the reality is the majority of people who were ADHD who had a diagnosis, 4 to 1, were men and often, or boys, and often white middle class boys or men. And that was problematic. So now we know that there's a huge swathe of people who never benefited from a diagnosis, but who do identify as ADHD or autistic, for example. And so that's been transformative. So we now have theoretical data sets to show that. But we also know that, and this is the incredible thing, Stoyan, is that people don't live in isolation. You don't have an ADHD brain, an autistic brain, and a dyslexic brain. You have one brain, right? And therefore, that brain can be many things, and it can be as diverse as the world that we live in. So, when we think about biodiversity in that context, and we think about the human brain being that diverse, we can be many things at the same time. And that has transformed our thinking. We know that if you're autistic, you're much, much more likely to also be ADHD. The statistics show it. So that really has changed our thinking on this topic, Stoyan, because it's not just the naughty schoolboy who's ADHD, right? There's many other people who may not show up in the same way who also identify with having some of the strengths and challenges associated with ADHD or autism or dyslexia, dyscalculia, for example.
Just curious, What was it like growing up? And maybe can you just share with the audience what are some of those traits that you identify with today? But also, what was it like growing up with these type of traits and maybe feeling a little different?
So if you ask any ADHDer or autistic, somebody who's autistic, they'll all come out with different views, right? Because it's complex. So whether you had good parents, right? Whether you had two parents or whether you had one, whether you were poor or whether you had a bit of money, all of these factors come into play to your life experience. For me, I had a great mum and dad, but we came from a low socioeconomic background, right? They didn't have much money. But my mum and dad went to university when I was a kid, when I was really young, and they re-educated themselves to get out of that cycle of poverty. And so I saw that in them. But even though they were caring parents, they had their own trauma and their own challenges. My dad's sister died when he was a teenager, and I was the eldest sister, and I was very traumatic for the family. My mum's dad died when she was a teenager, and that was from a massive Irish Catholic family in Liverpool, and that was traumatic because there was like 8, 9 kids, all had to be looked after by the mum. So they both went through this trauma that brought them together. I also think there's a lot of neurodivergence there. I think my mum is, I'm like a mirror version of her in many respects, as my child is a mirror version of me, right? And we can see it through the family. So a lot of the challenges, even though I was in a loving environment, were around my parents not really being engaged in my education, for example. And I used to get into a lot of trouble. I used to get into a lot of fights. I didn't understand jokes and nuance. And the problem is when kids see it, they attack it, right? So kids can see that I don't get jokes. So they think that's hysterical because they know I'll kick off. They'll say something about me and I lose the plot and I'm at them. And then they see this as a trigger that they just want to pull all the time. So Theo starts to get into a lot of trouble because kids know that they can just pull this trigger and I'm off. And a lot of those early years experiences, I couldn't hold a pen properly. I couldn't say my name properly. I used to say Theo. I couldn't do the. So I couldn't say my own name. Oh, kids loved that. Kids loved that I couldn't say my own name. Teachers got annoyed with me that I couldn't do that. So all of these things, Stoyan, were like weird, odd, right? It made me not fit in. And so you learn very quickly, you got to fight for your right. To party, or well, to be to have a voice, or you got to run away. And sometimes I ran away. Sometimes I tried to hide, but often I fought. I had fights, whether that's neurologically, whether that's physically. And I look back now, and it got me into a lot of very dangerous spaces and places, both through impulsivity. Some might look at it as addiction. I would say it's not, because I'm able to stop these things, these cycles. I am able to get out of them. But the way my brain works, I'm always looking for what is going to engage my brain next. And the quickest thing to engage my brain or to slow it down was alcohol, drugs, getting into trouble, doing things which put me at the extreme end of life. And I've been in some very, very dangerous situations. I only wrote a post the other day. I've been beaten up. I've been chased by gangs. I've been put in hospital where I can't remember what happened, but I've had friends tell me that I've been jumped. I would say things to people that were on my mind, to people I shouldn't have, and that put me in dangerous situations. I've done things like try to pull a knife out of my brother's hand by the blade. Well, you can imagine what happened there. Obviously, not much left of my hand. I've swallowed a wasp and ended up rushed to hospital by my mum, probably ADHD as well, in a bikini. Like, the list I can give you of the things that I've done, Stoyan, are the most ridiculous. I've been in a room with late at night with a boxer who has mental health challenges and his partner who was trying to attack him with a bottle. And this guy could have killed her. And so just that I could write a book about these things. But you know what's fascinating, Stoyan? These things that put my life in risk, these things that others would have ended up in prison, others lost their lives, friends of mine are no longer here. So those moments in life that could be death are also the same moments and reasons why people like me go on to become entrepreneurs and CEOs and create incredible businesses and ideas, because they're able to understand, or they're privileged enough to have people to support them to manage some of the challenges and the risks, and put them in a position where they can accelerate in some of those areas into a positive space or place rather into a negative space or place. And I think when we talk about productivity, Stoyan, for me, that is the fundamental, most important factor in when you've got a brain that works in a real extreme way, that is different to many other people. Getting hold of that can have a profound difference on whether you succeed in life or whether literally your life comes to an end much sooner than it should.
And I think the interesting thing is that we all have different brains, right? It's not like, you know, there's this 20% of people that are neurodiverse. Like everybody has some kind of a nuance of how their brain operates. So everybody has a different, unique kind of brain. But before we get into the advantages and how do we hone this productivity, I just want to maybe if you can provide a little bit of explanation, all these extreme situations that you got yourself into at a younger age. What was the reason for it? Was it you not being aware and not actually understanding and just without good intentions, but ended up in such situations because there was a lack of awareness? What was the reason for that?
There's so many variety of reasons. We could be here for 3 hours talking about it, but just an example is whenever I walk past people in the street, I had this intense need to stare at them, right? And I would do it when I'm sat, and sometimes I wouldn't even know I'm doing it, and sometimes my brain would be somewhere else when I'm doing it. I don't know the neurological scientific reason for this, but if you grew up where I grew up and you walked around the street staring at people in the eye or in the face, let me just tell you, that got me in a lot of very dangerous situations. So that's just an example of,
Hmm.
like, no matter what, every single day, I'm at risk for that single reason. Now, the other thing would be, I because my brain is really struggling to engage with a lesson or a meeting or something like that. My brain is looking for stimulation elsewhere. So because of the need for it to get that stimulation elsewhere, is all types of things that I might do. I might interrupt. I might start to verbal diarrhea around this idea and concept. Often I would be going into a space and place where other people they were like, what? Where is he? Like we're here in this space, and where is Theo? Like he sounds like he's in space. Like we have no idea of what the hell he's on about, right? But the reality is those extremes of energy, of thinking, they're the golden nuggets. They're the opportunities. That is where I've caught the prey. I've like gone at hyperspeed, but nobody else even saw that there was an opportunity out there. But the problem is when you're constantly doing that all the time, there is always somebody to go, you're a problem, you're an issue. We need to eliminate you, right? Because we don't understand you and you're a risk. And so that becomes a cycle that can become very dangerous and toxic if you're not in control of it. And that's why we know disproportionately the prisons are full of ADHDers,
No,
absolutely packed full of it.
really?
Yeah, we have the data and statistics to back it up that almost 2/3 of prisoners are ADHD. Because it's that need for stimuli, right? Professor Amanda Kirby, who I wrote the book with, has done extensive work in prisons, in Welsh prisons, and has done assessments through an innovative technology that shows ADHD traits. And there are some attributing factors to brain injury where it's not ADHD, but some of those traits are similar. But what we know is irrelevant of whether we call it ADHD or coming from a challenging background or brain injury or whatever it is, there are some factors at play that mean you're at significant risk of challenges, barriers, and not progressing in society. And that is the most important thing, is how do you be productive when you have these barriers for whatever reason, whatever title, trend we want to put it again, there are barriers there. And by the way, we have an opportunity to remove them. And some of those barriers, Stoyan, they are modern concepts in terms of human evolution. So this almost swore there, right? But I won't turn some people off. The stuff we built, these buildings, these environments, these cityscapes, right? We didn't consider human evolution. We didn't consider that for a very long time we've been farmers or hunters or whatever. In 200 years, globalization, industrialization, the Internet of Things, mobile technology, all of this stuff, a couple of 100 years, the brain has evolved over hundreds and thousands of years. When the brain became big, right, which is a long time ago, right, a very long time ago, when the brain became big, it's since been optimizing from being this intelligent human brain to a world that no longer exists in the majority of instances in Western society, in these cityscapes and environments. And if we say, yeah, but we live on a farm, we don't live in a city, irrelevant these days for the majority of people, because you'll have a mobile. You'll be supplying milk to the masses. You're not now supplying milk to your little community. You might be supplying milk all over the world. And the percentage of the dollar or the pound or the euro that you're getting is tiny. Therefore, you're having to produce far more than you did before. So the world is being affected by what we have done in the last 200 years, yet we didn't think about the human brain. And
When did you start thinking about your brain? Like, because you said, when you were younger, and I can resonate as well. Like, you kind of take things for granted, right? But at some point, you started to say, well, you know what? I need to maybe identify how my brain operates. When was that time for you? And I just want to also maybe give a little bit of a context to the audience. I know you now for a number of years. We've been friends. We've been supporting each other. We met a few times in person. We've been in Manchester, in Bilbao. I don't remember where else, but I remember I was preparing for my TEDx talk, and I invited you to join me for a Zoom call and to provide me with feedback because I wanted to deliver a great TEDx talk, and you gave me incredible feedback. Again, because you are hyper focused and hyper creative. However, and I remember this and really gave me a lot of power. I'm not sure I shared with you, Theo, but it gave me a lot of power. At some moment after I finished my presentation, you said, Stoyan, that was amazing. Can you please show me the slides once again, because I already forgot most of them. But you said it with such an energy of ownership, and hey, I don't remember a lot of those things because that's not how my brain works, kind of. And the way you said it, and I was like, of course, man, let me show you again. Then you gave me amazing feedback. But after we finished the call, I'm like, man, do I own some of my shortcomings? Obviously, I'm really good in certain things. Everybody who's listening is really good in certain areas, but we also have shortcomings. And my question then was, do I own my shortcomings? Of course, everybody has shortcomings. Or do I actually emphasize on them, and majority of my existence is focused on the things that are not good? So that's the reason I'm also asking this question, is like, when did you start getting aware and also accepting that there are shortcomings?
Yeah. So we can add to shortcomings. They could be challenges. They could be disabling factors. We could call it many different things depending on the individual, right? But stuff that affects your ability to do the stuff you're really good at. And so I guess you learn consistency over life. Hang on, I'm all right at this, I'm bad at that. Only telling my wife the other day, I was at a school event and we were away, and somebody put a pole through the door in the toilet. There was 3 or 4 of us in there. I was in there just going to the toilet, but these lads were messing around and they put this pole through doors, broke the door, and we were all sat in the dinner hall and told, right, if somebody doesn't own up to doing it, we're going to stop all the activities for everyone. And because I thought, hang on a minute, they're not owning up and everybody's going to miss out, including me, I said I did it, right? Now, that meant I lost out. I was the one who then didn't get to do any of these activities, horse riding, motorbiking, all of that stuff, right? And I cried. As a boy, I cried because it ruined my experience of being away. That's not a single example. It's this kind of need for justice. But not even like it's not even about me getting the justice, it's about justice being served. This is quite common in some ADHDers, those who are autistic. We see Greta Thunberg as an example. And this is why we need more leaders in the world who have that sense of justice, right? Stuff being done in the right way. And that's not to say only ADHDers or people who are autistic have it, because they also sometimes have the opposite of that as well, as we see. But I guess all through my life, I've been learning that some of the things that I do are not typical and they don't fit in and they cause me problems. And therefore, sometimes I try to protect myself from some of them. However, when I really started to understand this was through the lens of my child. And when I started to see some of the challenges and barriers that they were facing at like 2 or 3 at 4 and thinking, whoa, like some of the trauma that I went through, some of it is like I've just shared some stuff with you, but some of the stuff is pretty traumatic. It's not the worst. People in the world will be going through war, but some of it's like, I don't want my child going through that. I don't want my child being at that area of risk. And there's stuff that I can do about that. And I need to now look at myself in the mirror and understand, okay, what about that journey could have been different? How could have it been different? Loving parents, yes, but so many other stuff fell down. Why is that? And so the at 21, finding out I was dyslexic was a pivotal moment. At university, I walked in and they were like, "You're dyslexic," because it was a creative course, and lots of people were dyslexic on it, so it's easy for them to identify.
What are some of the traits of being a dyslexic? What are some of the usual general traits?
Well, some of it would be challenges with learning, right? So again, when we talk about brain trauma and ADHD, and there's some similarities. Some of the similarities with dyslexia is just around you've not learned, right? You didn't show up, you weren't in lessons, so you didn't learn, and therefore you may have challenges with spelling, with grammar, with language. They can all look like dyslexia. But when you add in some extra nuances around mixing up letters where they shouldn't be, sometimes challenges around left and right, knowing which is right, which is left, memory around dates. Some of these can now be linked to ADHD and stuff as well. So I still can't, in the alphabet, I still can't tell you what letter comes after the other letter without singing it in my head first. Right. So it's like simple. It's like, now imagine that in any context of things in life. I can't just, I struggle for a long time to say the months of the year. And even now I have to sometimes walk through them to know which month comes after the other. And I get stuck. I can't just immediately tell you. So now just put that in every facet and aspect of your life. And the way that I read, I really struggle with reading. I get lost in the words. So I find that there's a tool out there that highlights the first couple of letters of the word, each word, and that helps me stay more focused and in line. And so there's now things out there that can help. Some people benefit from putting coloured paper over text, and that helps the words stop feeling like they're moving around. That kind of doesn't work for me. And many of the things that I got recommended in university didn't work for me. But here's why. Because dyslexia wasn't like the most prominent thing that was in my brain. ADHD and autism are. And I even today, I don't know how the prevalence of which is most impactful to me. And I've also had probably some brain trauma. You know, I've had stitches in my head quite a few times. And so who knows? Like, I've not had a brain scan to know the impact of that. But I do know that ADHD and autism exist in my family. And unless they've all been knocked on the head, then there's some evidence there to show that it's highly likely, if you see ADHD, autism, and dyslexia within your family, you know, the chances of you being ADHD, autism, or dyslexic are like way, way, way higher. So yeah, it's right up until my late 30s is when I started to identify and go on that journey with my child. Right up now into I'm 45 today, and I'm still learning, Stoyan. I'm still looking at nutrition. I'm looking at my microbiomes. I've used the app and technology Zoe to track blood spikes, sugar levels. I've understood the things like certain food types and groups affect me, and that's with the sugar spikes. So all of these things I'm optimizing now. I'm thinking, okay, what can I
I
do
know it's
about?
very I know it's very personalized, right? Everybody needs to understand who they are and how they operate and kind of test many things. But just maybe to give some inspiration to the audience, what are some of those things that you found that work for you to help you be more productive, knowing yourself? Like, what are some of those advice you can, maybe not advice because it doesn't work for everybody, but something that works for you?
No. I could probably give something that hopefully will benefit many people. So if we think of ADHD specifically, let's just hyper focusing on that for a
Okay.
minute, right? That's a trending topic, right? So if nothing else, afterwards you share some topics on this, they'll do well.
All the ADHD, all the ADHD people, put your hands
Woohoo!
up in the air.
Right?
Let's
Well,
go.
if we think of ADHD like a cheetah, right? A cheetah is the fastest land animal, right? A cheetah's body is designed in a way like no other animal, fully optimized to make it go fast, really quickly. Now, a cheetah can go over 100 kilometers an hour, which is like 60 mile an hour, right? And it can do it for 30 seconds, right? So it can go over 100 kilometers an hour for 30 seconds. However, once it's done that, fastest land animal, it needs a rest for 30 minutes, right? So it can't then do the 30 seconds again until it's rested for the whole 30 minutes. So like all these animals can be laying, smiling in front of it, and like if it knows itself well enough, it's like no. Like, as much as they're taunting me, I just need to sit here and wait for the 30 minutes, and then I need to be hyper focused on when this animal is in front of me to be able to get it right. And so if you think about ADHD in the same way, or for anybody who maybe struggles with attention, focus, managers who have people who they're like, how is this person so energetic and so chatty and like they're all these things, but then they don't deliver the work that I need them to do. It's because for a lot of ADHDers, they don't understand how they can proportion this energy and this focus in the right way. And it's the same as an athlete. The best athletes in the world are all disproportionately ADHD. That is not by accident, that is by design. And they have a whole team around them to help them understand how to optimize their body so that when they need to deliver that 30 seconds to be the fastest human being on the planet, they do, right? And everything else works towards that. Now, if you think of that, and everyone's like, okay, Theo, you're going off into some hyperspace idea here. Let's bring it back down to a human being sat at a table trying to deliver work on their desk. If you keep going and making cups of tea, you're using up some of that energy, right? If you are in a very busy, noisy environment, that is using up lots of your energy, right? That might feel great and fun because it's playing to that need to use that bit of your brain that is desperate for that activity. But when you then come to sit down and need to focus on your work, you may have run out of energy, right? And there's tons of stuff out there that talks about time management for ADHDers. I would say no, focus on energy management, right? If you focus on energy management over time management, what you're then thinking about is you are the fastest human being in thought, but if you don't manage that energy effectively, when you need to use the fastest thought in the world, like all the top CEOs of these organizations have recognized, you won't be able to. And so you will turn into the slowest thinker because you're neurologically, psychologically exhausted, and the little tortoise will slowly go past you, and you'll be thinking, how come I have so much energy, yet in the moments I really need it, I don't have it? Oh, it must be time management. No, it's energy management. It's nutritional. It's understanding what gives you energy from food, what gives you energy in terms of interest, and what takes away the energy that you need to shut down and switch off.
What to say no to.
Yeah, say no to, exactly. You as an ADHDer, any human being, but absolutely as a cheater, if you are giving away your 30 seconds needlessly, you ain't catching your prey. You ain't creating an incredible business. You ain't driving productivity, boom, out of this place, right? You ain't, because you are putting all your energy, you ain't knocking that ball out of the park because you were too busy using your energy chatting to the person next to you. But when you got out to knock that ball, you missed that ball. And this is a fundamental fact of life that so many people just don't get and don't understand. And by the way, it's not easy. That is one of the biggest challenges. It is much easier for me to put that energy into going and having a few drinks. It's much easier for me to go and do something that's negative to others and to myself, especially when I was younger. That means not only do I use that energy on bad stuff, but people start to only see me as existing within a bad space or place, right? And so people's perception of you then thinks, Theo's always running around all the place. But you know what? Actually, he's just a distraction on other people. He's just noisy. He's just annoying. He's not actually productive. And you know what? Maybe they're right. But I need the support of the manager, not to say, Theo, you're a waste of energy. I need my manager to be going, Theo, you have incredible energy. Theo, you come up with some really interesting ideas. Let's see how we can focus some of that. Let's see how we can manage your time more effectively. Let's see how we can conserve some of that energy so you can be the best person you be. I spoke to a CEO recently who said, Theo, I came to one of your talks. Actually, he hired me because he was an event manager to do talks, but he was there. And he said, Theo, I didn't know I was ADHD until you gave me the idea that I might be. And I wasn't calling him out. It was a natural conversation where I felt able to go, there's a lot of experiences that you have that are like mine, and I'm ADHD. And a couple of years later, he got the diagnosis. And he said, I've only ever seen it as an ability. But he said, I'm a very successful founder and CEO of an events company. I got to do loads of stuff that really played well to my ADHD. I got to be around people when I wanted to. I get to party. I get to create events, all stuff that played to what my brain needed. But I got to sleep at 3 o'clock every single day. And nobody was telling me off about that, Theo. I got to go and lie down. And I used to think it was about nutrition because I was a vegan. I'm a vegan still. And yet he said it wasn't. Actually, it was around, I just gave so much energy, like the cheetah, so much energy that by 3 o'clock every single day, most of my energy had gone, but literally just needed 30 minutes like the cheetah. And then for the rest of the night, you'd be flying again. And obviously you get home and you'd be exhausted and you go to bed and have a good night's sleep, which is not common for a lot of ADHDers because they sit on a chair all day long and then they don't get any good sleep because they've not been using up enough of that energy in a way that
When is it that
between,
when is it that you are getting good night's sleep, knowing all those traits? Like, what are the days that you sleep the best?
So, listen, I still use probably the wrong type of medicine to get me to sleep on a weekend, which is wine, beer. They relax me and I enjoy them, and therefore I have to be mindful of that because of my impulsivity. And I'm constantly checking in. Dry January. See, I've put mechanisms in place to protect myself because that has been something that has been a vice from very young. I don't take other medical drugs to treat my neurological traits, right? Because I don't want to. But I know that I probably use other things to be able to
What about the
manage.
organic? What about the organic? Because I remember when when I came to visit you guys in Manchester, you were taking all these walks.
Yeah. So walks, I stand at a desk. This is something only recent in the past 3 or 4 months. Actually, it might be from last year when I said I'm going to commit to standing up. In January,
Does that
I'm
help?
not going to drink in January.
Hmm?
I'm going to stand up and these things, and I do deliver them because I can become hyper focused and obsessed about them. And this is when you hone that strength to do something positive. It's amazing what you can do. So I just said I don't know whether I'm going to be in the gym every day. That's not my thing, but I can make sure I go for walks every day. And I can make sure that I stand at a desk every day, no matter how difficult it is, no matter how much I don't like it. Every day I'm going to stand. You know what now, Stoyan? Even when I'm at cafes and when other people sit, I stand unless I think it's awkward. Unless, like everybody's really nicely sat down. Today I'm sat for this session. But in most other instances now, I just naturally stand because I'm so used to it. So if as an ADHD, for me, getting these things in that are positive, like walks and other stuff, that are manageable, that don't take much cognitive energy to remember to do them, I just do them. And to go for a walk after maybe I've eaten a brunch, because I know I get a sugar spike, and therefore the walk helps with the sugar spike, right? I'm really tuning in into my body and accepting that I'm not perfect. I'm gonna have vices. I'm gonna have stuff I don't do perfect, but actually stuff that I can eliminate, like I have done. I eliminate most sweet treats. I don't have them, and I don't eat now. Many other things that I feel don't do good for me. I eliminate them and I just keep the things that I really enjoy, really provide value, and then I find that gives me the energy that I need to keep on. And by the way, when you say about sleeping at night, because I'm standing all day long, because I'm using my brain a lot, because I'm hyper focusing on stuff that I love to do, because I'm getting the balance, um, I sleep pretty well. I wake up 4 or 5 times in the night. That's it. But I'm
Really?
not. Oh yeah. Oh
Is that
yeah.
normal?
Oh yeah. Well, no, I don't think it is normal. I think it's an
It's
ADHD
normal
thing.
for you, I mean.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Waking up 4 to 5 times at
Wow,
night
really,
minimum.
man?
That's what I remember. And for a lot of ADHDers, the problem is the ruminating or rumination. Some of the best ideas I have come at night because I hyper focus and obsess about them. Um, but also those things like trauma, past experiences, things I wish I hadn't have done, they come to me at night. But if I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I'm doing things I love, I stand all day, I go for my walks, I do all of these things, I find I'm much calmer. And what I've learned as well is, if I can't control waking up, but what I can control is what I do when I wake up. And like many things in my life now, it is acceptance. I'm older, and I go, I accept that, I'm not as handsome as I wanted to be when I was younger. I accept that I don't have the muscles I want. I accept that I'm not as intelligent academically as I would. I can accept some of those things about myself, and that brings a calm. And I can accept waking up 5, 6, 7, 8 times a night because that is me. That's who I am. And I can accept in that moment that I'm just going to lay here and go, I'm not going to worry about getting up tired because I'm going to get up as I get up. Sometimes I sleep all night and I get up tired. Most times I wake up loads of times and I get up and I've got some level of energy. So in that moment, I'm not going to stress like I used to. I'm going to have this acceptance. I'm going to think about, I'm going to lean into sometimes that thought. So rather than go, that thought's horrible, I don't want to think about it, I'm going to go, I'm gonna lean into that thought. As horrible as it may be, as challenging as it may be, as stressful as it may be, I'm gonna lean right into that thought. And sometimes that thought is an incredible idea, and I'm gonna immerse myself in that idea. And when I wake up, sometimes I forgot it, sometimes I remembered it, but again, I'm not putting myself pressure around that. It's a very good way of accepting that there's certain things you may never change about yourself. And if you embrace them, the challenges, the stuff that you may not like, if you embrace them and accept them, it's much easier to do something positive with them than allowing them to take over your life.
Man, acceptance is giving such power. Accepting your shortcomings, your flaws, your your insecurities or the areas that you don't have experience in, and just saying, you know what, I'm not good at that. I forget things everywhere, man. For example, keys and clothes, and I travel and I forget my bags. Like, I've been trying so much when I was little to, just to be better, to remember, and nothing really works. And then at some point it was just like, I have to accept that, once in a while I'll forget something, I'll lose something. Um, and I do know what helps me not to. I usually, that happens when I'm very overwhelmed. I have many things on my mind, but it's much easier for me to forget than many other people. To forget things, to leave valuables, around the place, right? So I have to accept it. The moment I accept it, I don't beat myself up. Well, I'm not better at this thing, but my experience is much better. And then I can also emphasize a little bit more on my strengths, which I think often we take for granted. What are some of the strengths, some of the superpowers of a ADHD professional?
Oh wow. Well, for me, it is exactly those things that, like I said before, that often got me into trouble. It's that I have an intense focus, right, and got me into trouble. But it also means that I'm highly perceptive of the world around me. I see things that others don't see. And just like, I remember we were on a tube in London, and my wife, it was packed, and I spotted somebody, immediately felt risk from that individual and spotted them very clever, very brilliantly, wrap their hand around into my wife's handbag, open it and start to put their hand in. And I just grabbed my wife and I just moved around so that she moved around and I moved into the way that put. And that person got off immediately next to. Like, nobody was aware of this. It was like, like when you're in this moment, it's like when you have a car crash or something and everything slows down. So like for me, and this is it, right? People hate the idea of loads of people hate the idea of superpowers and super abilities. But for me, sometimes it feels like that, like the world slows down, um, and my focus is like in that moment. I can see stuff that other people don't see. And it sometimes it could become debilitating because it can be risk. Like sometimes it can be annoying for others. So we'll be walking down the street and we'll be talking, and because I'm so hyper focused around everything that's going on, I'll see that people are walking down from the other way, and I'll be mindful of the fact we're taking up the whole walkway. And already I'm thinking about how we're going to maneuver ourselves to ensure that they can walk past and we can walk past. Like, I can't tell you, Stoyan, this is like my mind is constantly going through this process of seeing stuff, hearing stuff. And that is an absolute super ability in my view. And I think a lot of
It
ADHDers
is.
have it.
It
But
is.
it's,
I just want to say because we've been friends, as I said, and we've been, partnering up on different projects and so on, and I really appreciate your ability to be creative, but also to be very fast into understanding me. Like you're one of the fastest people in terms of, I just throw your word and you're already there and you imagine the whole picture, and we can talk about ideas. With as opposed to other people, I might have to explain a little more, give them context. With you, it's just, let's go. We're there. You're hyper focused. So, and I don't know if many of the listeners who have this kind of ADHD traits, for example, are recognizing this as a strength as opposed to taking it for granted.
oh, it's interesting. So it is definitely an ability to read other people. I think ADHDers or autistic individuals or combined find sometimes that they can do this. So it's laughable in some respects when you talk about autism. People go, don't like eye contact with others. I don't think I do ever connect eye contact. I always look at people's forehead and nose. I never really think about it. So actually, the funny thing is, I stare at people and they probably feel like I'm staring right into their eyes, but I'm not. So often I have no idea of anybody's eye color. Often I have to think twice with my wife as well and second guess it. I couldn't tell you what the eye color of my kids are. I don't look at eyes. So there's an assumption that then I might not notice certain things, right? And so it can be very confusing, some of these ideas and concepts around autistic individuals also not having emotion. and not wanting to hug people. And I am a hugger, right? So that some of this stuff doesn't make sense to me. But I have a deep connection to animals in the sense of from very young, I had a love for the animal world. I thought I might become a vet, but that was never happening because I'd never get the qualifications. I feel a deep affinity and connection, like my child, with nature and with animals and with living, breathing things. Um, and I think that then translates into people, right? Because I just get a feeling, a sense of people. I think some of that might be because of the risk. I got myself into a lot of dangerous positions. So you have this immediate, like, is this another position where I'm going to be attacked, where I'm going to, so you become hyper focused about that as you get older. Those experiences are more deeply rooted. But also for me personally, my mum got me involved in drama at a very young age. I was like 10. And then I went on to drama school in the end. So I've had a long period of time of being in a lot of performances and plays, probably like 50 or more productions, live productions in front of audiences and then TV and what have you, where you have to learn about the character, their emotions, how they feel. You have to tap into their psyche. And so when you do that, it's almost like thinking of psychology, right? You're trying to get into human experience. I also wonder whether that's why a lot of actors who are ADHD or autistic, like Anthony Hopkins, for example, they may be incredible at getting into the who a human being is and being able to replicate that. But actually, sometimes they lose who the human is in themselves, right? So they struggle to be human on that perspective because they are so attuned to others that they lose a sense of self. And I think there might be something in that for a lot of NDers, people who identify as ND, that sometimes they often have the struggle of having identity, of knowing who they are, because of the reflection of what identity is, what being human is so confusing to them, and therefore animals make much more sense to them because it breaks it down into these connections that are above the way that we now think and react from a human level and perspective.
This is super interesting, man. This is super interesting. Now, one thing that I find people with ADHD traits are struggling with when it comes to productivity is being finishers, completing things, right? Because when you're more hyperactive, it's easier to start things. There's something about the novelty, like the new task, the creativity of the initiation of something new that kind of drives you, gives you this dopamine, this drive. But then when it comes to staying consistent and focusing on something more routine, that could be a challenge. And I wonder what would be your advice in that perspective. Of course, one of them is to find a role that fits your personality better, but assuming that you still have to get things done, like, do you, for example, have a to-do list that you prioritize things and that helps you? Do you have any kind of tricks for those individuals who are struggling to complete and finish things?
Yeah, so for a lot of people like myself, I think they identify with having a negative response to demands. We call it demand avoidance or pathological demand avoidance in kind of the medical terminology, which is almost for some, which is such a feeling of fight against the demand. And that demand in my child is like, go have a shower, right? And they're like, all their fiber of their body and their being says no, even though actually they want to have a shower and they know they smell. But because you've demanded it of them, they're like, there is no way. And so the problem is for ADHDers is the demand avoidance can become or feel aggressive. And therefore, if you're a manager managing somebody, or a partner of, and you are demanding something of them, and you get this intense feeling. My wife's experienced it when we were younger. She used to feel it was aggressive, right? She was scared sometimes, although she's a black belt in karate, so she could have just kicked my ass, right? But we had to manage that as a relationship. So I think that that demand avoidance, understanding that about yourself, and therefore changing the demand into nudges is really powerful. Who can provide you with nudges and you're aware that they're nudges and that they're not demands? And I was only having a conversation today about that, be holding people accountable, but not in a way, you didn't do this, rah, 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 rah. More like, I'm never going to tell you to do this. I'm just going to give you a nudge that you said you wanted to do it. You said you wanted to have a shower because you knew you smelled. I'm just going to keep nudging you to go, hey, the shower thing, remember? It's up, the heating's on, it's fine. Anytime you want to do it. And that allows the individual to ultimately come to the decision of, right, you told me yesterday, you told me the day before, I now feel the need to do that, right? So that's like, think of everything in that context. No matter what you do, anything that you do, whether you're a manager of somebody ADHD or that about yourself, just think about that. That's coming back again to the point I made about energy management versus time management. If you're getting your energy management right, and then you can create the nudges, that is going to be much better for you being able to deliver what you need to, rather than time management that can be very restrictive and not play to triggering the dopamine, the energy, what you want to be doing, right? So do anything you want with time management. I still ain't doing it, right? I'm not doing it. So I can have the best app for time management in the world. It still ain't happening. So like, that's my point around the whole misconception around time management is going to solve the problem. It is absolutely not, for me and for many others. The other thing is context switching. So to help people think about getting the best out of themselves, if you're an ADHD, like moving from one task to the other and doing a bit of that and doing a bit of this, yes, brilliant. But at the end of the day, what you've just said there, Stoyan, is coming up with incredible ideas. You could be the next Bill Gates or whoever, right? If you don't like Bill Gates. However, you never complete the thing, all the 1,000 things you wanted to do, because you've got 1,000 things you want to do, and they drain your energy. Back to energy management again. So when you context switch, when you go, oh, I'm going to make a cup of tea. Oh, I'm going to do a little bit of this. Oh, I'm going to do a bit of that. Oh, they want to chat now. I'm going to go over there. You've used up all your energy, your resources. You've got very excitable, and you've created all these open tabs, but you have no idea what's in these open tabs anymore. You can't remember which one you started, which one you finished. So context switching takes huge amounts of energy, and we are brilliant at doing it as ADHDers. So you need to start shutting down some of those files. You need to think about where your prey is, where your opportunity is, and you need to get really hyper focused on, right, I need to get to a point where I've caught at least one prey for today, because otherwise I'm going home hungry, right? And if I'm going home hungry, today was not a successful day for me. So no matter what else I do, no matter how many times I context switch and everything else, what is the single thing that if I just delivered that today, I'd be like, yeah, that's all right. And then you've got people nudging you, friends, co-workers, manager, whatever, or you've got a business partner, because ADHDers, I think, work better in twos for that reason, nudges, holding accountable, and all those other things. And so that is probably one of the best bits of advice I can give you is, yes, we love variety. We love doing lots of stuff, but we need to close some of those tabs down to hyper focus on what are the non-negotiables for that hour, that day, that week.
Such a great way to wrap up this episode. Theo, I know you have some meetings and I want to respect your time. Is there anything that like a final message or maybe you want to share with the audience where they can connect with you?
No. A couple of final things. So let's highlight what we've talked about today, right?
I'm here, man. If you have the
Cheetah.
time, I'm here. We want to have you more. Go for it.
Cheetah. Let's wrap this up, right? Cheetah. We talked about it. Fastest animal on the earth. 30 seconds at hyper speed, over 100 kilometers an hour, but needs to rest for 30 minutes, right? So think about the cheetah in everything that we discussed today. The sprint rest cycle, right? Go fast, but then you need to go slow to go fast again. ADHDers, this is really important for you. You can't always go fast, you'll burn out. Founders of companies, understand this. You will burn out eventually. Heston Blumenthal, one of the most incredible chefs in the world, burnt out. His wife had him sectioned because fundamentally didn't understand some of the factors that were at play here, and it caught up with him, even though he was at the pinnacle height. So the sprint rest cycle, important to know. Energy management versus time management. We talked about it, right? It's irrelevant having all your tabs in time management, what you're going to do if you're not managing your energy effectively, because when it comes to do the task, you won't have the energy. When the prey runs past you, you've used it up, you can't catch it. Really important we think about that. Environmental sensitivity as kind of a super ability. So me being able to see all these millions of things can feel sometimes overwhelming and debilitating, but if you can really get your handle on it, this sensitivity to know everything that's going on in your environment is absolutely a super ability, and it can save lives, it can manage risk, it can help you see things that others don't in terms of creativity. Like, get a handle on that sensitivity, and rather than it just be, oh, I hate the smell of sardines, right? Use the fact that you smell sardines 100 times more than everybody else to think about how you can use that in other context spaces and places, right? The cost of context switching, we just talked about. If you have all these tabs open, right, you're going to struggle to remember what they are and to deliver what's being asked of you. Have one tab that is a non-negotiable, then you can sit in all the other tabs as well, whilst managing your energy levels to make sure you can ultimately catch that prey at the end of the day. And recovery is productive. We talk about, we're going to end on this one, Stoyan, productivity, right? Recovery ensures productivity. Without recovery, there is no productivity. That is for everyone, right? So you need to ensure for your survival, right, that you have your 30 minutes rest so you can knock that 30 seconds out of the park. And I know managers and companies are going to hate this. What? You got to rest 30 minutes to just be productive for 30 seconds? But the reality is you are the fastest human brain on the planet, right? And for you to do what nobody else can do, you need to do it the way that you do it. End of. And manage your life in a way to ensure that you protect that. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
And by the way, productivity is about producing results. Doesn't matter what happens in the next hour or 2 hours. It matters at the end of the day, at the end of the week, what are the results you produced?
And who knows that better than founders of startup companies that are successful, right? They know it. They know it. They know they don't need to work 15-hour days, right? They know that they need to make the right decisions and quickly, and they need to use that energy in a very meaningful way. But they also know after some time that if they don't manage their energy levels effectively, they will burn out and that company will crumble or somebody else will come and take it off them. End of story. That's a tough lesson to learn.
And just to wrap up with this, because Theo wants to provide value and share, but I just want to give him a little bit of credit here and say, first of all, Theo, thank you so much, man. I mean, your energy, the insights, everything that you do. I gotta say, if you are an event producer, make sure to get in touch with this guy. If you are in HR, in recruitment, if you're a leader, a big organization, want to raise awareness about neurodiversity, this is the guy. He can consult you. He can put up a workshop for your team. If you're into podcasts, he has a great podcast called Neurodiversity with Theo Smith. You can find it anywhere. I listen to it. There's some really interesting guests. They talk about different kind of angles and nuances of that. And he's also the author of a book called Neurodiversity at Work. There you go, Neurodiversity at Work. And he's writing a second one right now. Very approachable guy. So he's also on LinkedIn, Theo Smith. LinkedIn top voice, by the way, for a good reason, producing a lot of great content. So yeah, you got to follow this guy. What can I say? Theo, thank you so much once again, brother. Can't wait to have you again next time around. I know you have to go to a meeting, so I'm gonna leave you here. But let's jump on a call soon. I don't know why I'm saying that in front of everybody, but let's jump on a call. Let's.
Lot of love for you, Stan. A lot of love for you. Big respect, mate. Big respect, and a pleasure to come on and have a chat with you as always.
Hey, thanks everybody for being with us. I mean, you guys are the best. That's why we're doing it. So thank you so much for everyone. Yeah, Theo, all the best, brother. Everybody, see you once again in the next episode of Deep Productivity Mastery. Let's keep performing.